What's good? What's good, everybody? Yes, we are back, fully staffed and ready to go. This is Elevated Vibes right here on IntellectualRadio.com, a iHeart radio station. Now, you know us, but we still going to do the introductions as usual, just in case you forgot.
We are unforgettable.
Just in case. I am your boy Abdul Rashid, along with
The co-pilot in the co-pilot seat, ready to sit back, relax, and elevate minds. This is your boss man. Make sure your minds are open and your ears are ready to catch consciousness.
Talk to him. Go ahead.
And Tim is here.
Yes, sir.
Eric Sheffield from Detroit. How y'all doing?
Big E from the D, baby.
Good to be back. Let's do it.
No doubt, no doubt. Now, everybody, we already know. January 20th, we had
Celebration.
that one with issues. I'm gonna say it like that. I'm gonna be somewhat nice. He did a whole pile of executive orders. All right. These executive orders took down things that we were building to make life better for us all. All right. We're going to touch on one of them today. We're going to talk about the end or the death of police accountability. You want to start this off, Tim?
Oh, okay. So, yeah, when Donald Trump came in office, he pushed back Biden era police reforms. He dropped police reform agreements. He retracted findings that allege widespread misconduct in police departments. He shifted his administration away from oversight of local and state police departments. And
he did things like killing the consent decrees.
Well, that's the heart of it, is the consent decrees. He pulled back from the consent decree. So for people, consent decrees are things that police departments entered into. So you think of the case of Minneapolis, Minnesota. They look, the Department of Civil Rights would come in, do an exhaustive study from the Justice Department, and they would make certain findings. And, you know, rather than risk litigation, police would go into these consent decrees that would be overseen by judges or magistrates. And the responsibility was you were supposed to make reforms, like, you know, talk about, you know, the use of violence and, you know, ticketing people. So you think about the people in Ferguson, where people are, you know, these municipalities, and people are getting pulled over 5 or 6 times and being deprived of, you know, their due process, just the mere fact that you got the traffic ticket. Now, you know, if you think about it, you know, there is an incentive for the police because, you know, municipalities were depending on those fines and those tickets. And, you know, I think I read a long time ago in Ferguson, like, if you were white, the chances of you getting pulled over if you had cocaine blowing out your car was less than 1%. But if you were black, you know, it's like 10 times that, even though you only constituted, I think, 25, 30% of the population, you know. So, you know, and, you know, you always run into this argument of, you know, higher numbers doesn't necessarily mean racism.
Yeah,
I don't know what that, you know, I get it to an extent that, you know, correlation is not necessarily also causation. But if you are 20 to 35% of the population, but you're getting pulled over 5 to 10 times as much as those, I don't know what you want to call it. You know, you're literally saying black people drive worse than people of non-color, you know?
Yes.
And so he's pulled back from well, I mean, it all started with the parting of, you know, the rioters or freedom fighters or whatever they want to call them, whatever. But when you one of the things that we hold tantamount in this country is we did or used to revere police officers. Now, how you are going to be a law and order president, but you're pardoning the rioters, people who caused one man's death, severely wounded and injured other Capitol Police officers. There's even been talk about, commuting this Derek Chauvin's federal crimes.
Yeah, but a lot of these, like with the situation with Chauvin and all that, went with a lot of over policing, which if you're from any of the neighborhoods that we've been in, lived in, been around and so forth, we know a lot about it. I mean, I can go down the line with it with racial profiling, aggressive police tactics, the quotas.
Broken windows.
Right. But we all know about the quotas. You know how they used to do.
They will tell you there's never was quotas.
Yeah, right. But you suddenly get a ticket. You get a ticket in the beginning of the month and at the end of the month, because they got to catch up with them quotas. You notice your tickets don't come around in the middle of the month. Well, it's a reason for that. Quota.
No, that's assertive policing.
I like
that's assertive policing. I'm sure if we did a study and paid somebody, that they will find that crimes tend to be higher in the first 5 to 10 days when people receive their Social Security checks. And then we also find a study, I'm sure, somewhere by someone, in some bureau that says crime is higher at the end of the month because people have ran out of their Social Security checks. And, people in poverty tend to make desperate decisions. And so therefore, henceforth, wherefore too, it requires more assertive policing.
Okay. Now let's touch on something.
But I'm sure.
Touch on that real quick. What you guys are saying about the policing.
Come on.
So, excuse me. So, I think, like, in addition to what you guys stated about I think they also got rid of a lot of the programs or the policies that dealt with like the diversity and training classes that the police had, so that they will understand that, you just can't open fire on Black people for no reason. So I think, in addition to what you guys were saying about the other policies that he put into action, with this whole police immunity thing, I think that's another thing that he made sure to put on that, in those policies, saying that, all those training classes, to teach them how to, de-escalate with Black folks. Yeah, no, we're not doing that anymore.
Just
so
de-escalation, period. Just de-escalation, period. Or dealing with people with mental health.
That's another thing.
Dealing with people with mental health. What's the lady's name who was in Springfield?
Sonia Massey.
Sonia Massey. That was a situation in which, de-escalation. First of all, if you ever watch the tape, you don't even understand why he shot her.
I couldn't watch the whole thing, man.
Because he was a hothead, man. He was a hothead that's gotten away with stuff such as that for the long
life and death of himself and his partner.
From hot water across the room, and she wasn't even talking about throwing it.
No, she actually was pouring it out in the sink at the time.
Yes,
and the phone rang, and whatever. If you haven't seen the tape, you should watch the tape. It is on YouTube, where various attorneys discuss what is happening. But you have to think, the standard is this what a reasonable officer would do in this situation.
Now, this is his body cam footage, right?
That was his
body, him and his partner.
Right.
Okay,
So I think at the moment of the shooting, the partner or the fellow officer, his back was turned. Right. And he sees one police officer draw his weapon, the one who shot her. And so he draws his weapon. But I don't believe he shot. It was just, he shot her.
Let me get deeper within that real quick, and I'm gonna let you go with that, Tim. But what was also done is that after he shot her, the other guy that was taking the video, he told him, he was like, hey, get the medical kit. He was like, it's not even worth it. That was a headshot. And then when the rest of the officers were still going in trying to help her, he wants to go and run and get a kit then. And they was like, we don't need you, and then so he had a complete nonchalant, I don't care attitude with that whole deal. Go ahead, Tim.
So I wanted to revisit. What you were saying about the like analysis, right? Of how to kind of target a certain group of people, right? So you try to look at a situation and you have people to analyze how you can make things better. So sometimes they will come out with a study group, right? And they will try to understand what can make, like, say, drug use go down, right? And then they will come out with an outcome that they don't want to hear, right?
Okay.
And you will never hear about that study because they don't want that study to come out. You know what I mean? So say, like, if you had legalized drugs, right? And you put all of that money into, not prosecution, but trying to help the people that are on drugs.
Alternative program.
Right. So a study like that, which I think they have done a study, they would not want that study to come out because of all the interest that they would hurt trying to, make that work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
No doubt. Hey, just while we're on, well, I want to come back to the scientific things and the study group, just like you were talking about, because it's something I heard earlier today. We're going to come back to that towards the end of the show. But what I wanted to do, and you and I have talked about this, Mike, qualified immunity.
Yep.
Yes. All right. Now, personally, I said, let's abolish it. But I would like to know what Eric and Tim thinks about it.
Well, does everybody
Well, I mean, I could break it down.
let's-
Break it down?
Yeah, I mean, I have
All I mean,
I guess, yeah.
Go ahead.
At its core, qualified immunity is a judicially created rule that protects government officials, including police officers, from being sued for money damages in their personal capacity unless they violated a person's clearly established constitutional rights. But here's the kicker. Clearly established doesn't just mean that the right itself is in the Constitution. Say the right to be free from excessive force. It means that there must be a prior court decision with similar facts that clearly said, yep, this conduct is unconstitutional. If no such case exists, the official gets immunity, even if what they did was morally or constitutionally wrong. So even before you get to deposing, asking questions, getting witnesses, you must overcome this hurdle of qualified immunity. Because what the state is going to do is say, hey, this is a case of de novo, meaning there's no precedent. Like, and it could be something as simple as, hey, in this case, he shot her 3 times, but in this case, it was only twice. Those facts matter, and so if 3 is the magic number, then shooting twice may get him qualified immunity. So I understand it from the viewpoint of, we're a litigious society and you don't want your government officials constantly, continuously being sued. However, I believe that qualified immunity sets the bar so high that even that conduct that which we find, shocking, morally outrageous, repugnant, makes it okay because there have been no other cases like that. You think about, my man in El Salvador. You can never sue the president for this because he has qualified immunity. Not to mention, we have a rule that the president can't be sued while he's in the office. Think about what happened with the New York case, the only case he was found guilty 42 times, right? now he should have gotten a fine, jail time, or anything like that.
Mhm.
But because now he's going to become the sitting president, he gets off with a slap.
Yeah.
So that's what qualified immunity is. And until we find a adequate remedy, you're going to continue to have this, because the only thing that dissuades people to change their behavior is monetary damages. But most people know that when you're going to trial, especially when it's against a municipality, there's insurance. So of course, the city pays out higher fees and fines and stuff like that, but it doesn't affect the officers individually. If we can find a way, and I'm not sure I agree with it, because if you're working in your official capacity, there should be some protection. But with them, there is a thing, we call it intentional tort. Intentional torts are things like assault, battery, is something other than negligence, right?
Mhm.
So if I do something intentionally, my job doesn't protect me, right?
Mhm.
But in their case, they have this qualified immunity. And so they receive the protection of the law. And so, and I'm talking about they arrested you, and they are as wrong as two left shoes on two right feet on February 31st. They that wrong.
Yeah.
But you have no recourse, if you can overcome it at the state level, and we don't even want to talk about it at the federal level. But at the state level, it's hard to get over, but it's not impossible. When you're talking about the federal level, you have better chance breathing in outer space.
Mhm.
So tell me what y'all think about it, though.
You know, go ahead, man.
No.
Well, I got a lot to say, so I'll let you go.
Okay. So I think of it as like a fingerprint. No two are the same. I don't think you can ever find two crime scenes or incidents the same. You know what I mean? So they'll always have a escape to prosecution, if you follow that. I think that they kind of skating over the spirit of the law. Instead
You
of
think the law has spirit? The law is factual. Yeah, it is
Well,
the book. I
That's
saw
a
the
good
movie,
one.
The Book of Eli. In the beginning, he said there was the word.
yeah, I don't think that they are following the spirit of of justice.
I got to counter you on that, but I'll wait till you get done.
No, you
man.
go ahead.
No, you.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you?
Yeah.
So, in response to your question, first off, like, we know who we're dealing with, and for those people who still don't want to admit that, we're dealing with a Nazi-ass president in the White House right now, and his entire administration as well. So, when you talk about, well,
I don't think they Nazis. I think they racist, but not
Not
Nazis.
Nazis.
Yeah,
That's a little bit too far, right?
The Nazis hated Jews. I think this one just hates people of color.
Yeah, just in general. But to what you said about it being not, realizing, oh, this is not justice, right? This is not police justice. For me, honestly, man, I given the reason why I stated that, he's, and him and his administration, are racist, obviously, and you can see what they're going back to. I think you have to look at what, the policies and stuff that he's putting into place, right? But you got to remember, I think what he's trying to do, and he's very well knowingly, aware that he's doing this. They're trying to go back, to me, it feels like, to the position of the police when they first started out, okay? Because they started out as catching slaves, right? That's what they did. So now with this administration that you have, exactly, if we can go back to that, so now the police can be allowed to do whatever they need to do, and they can't be held accountable. Who's to say, okay, yeah, we get to a situation, all right, you know what, turn your body cams off. Okay, who's going to ask them, hey, what happened to that footage? No one. The qualified immunity, and we had issues before of the police investigating the police on crimes against people of color, and you see how that went. So I think what he's trying to do is obviously take it back to, the initial program of why law enforcement was made in the first place. Qualified immunity, like I said, it's going to make a lot of things worse, man, because now if you had a cop that was in one county that would shoot someone unlawfully, right? Oh, you got a ticket, and you get out of the car. Hey, man, here's my, or not even get out of the car. You're reaching in a glove compartment for your registration, your ID. Oh, I shot him by accident, blah, blah, blah. There's no recourse for that guy. Now, usually they would say, okay, well, if you have so many incidents, well, you know what? We'll send you to another county to work as a police officer there. You can't be in this county to work anymore. They don't even have to pretend that they actually care about doing that now, because now with a qualified immunity, that officer can stay in that same county and keep doing the same egregious acts that he's been doing, and no one's going to hold him accountable. And I think that's what we're looking at again, because you go back and look at what he's doing with that, with the qualified immunity, but also with the military. We tend to forget just a few months back where they had a STEM event at a I can't remember where the school it was at, but there was a big STEM event, for Black kids. And I think it was the Marines or the Army. I can't remember which one.
All the branches go there and recover.
Right. And they recruit the best and the brightest.
Right. Yeah, they're the
exactly.
Some of the top coders.
And they've been doing that. And they've been doing that for a very long time. This administration said, yeah, no, we're not doing that anymore. So the entire event was canceled. Okay, that was a few months ago. After that, you had the president put into policy the whole thing with, well, you have a lot of, let's say, Black men in the Marines that have problems with, shaving down.
Yep.
Right. Okay. You used to be able to get a no shave chit for that. You have it down to a certain length. Okay. No problem. Now it's like, hey, you know what? If you can't maintain this for so long, you're going to get discharged. So now, and on the record as well, also heard them say that they don't want Black people in the military. So now you got police with qualified immunity. You have the military with qualified immunity. Well, I won't say qualified immunity for the military. I'm sorry. You have a military that you have less and less people of color in that military, and you also have a president that has qualified immunity. What do you think he's going to do? And not to mention, I think I'm going to do whatever Trump says general that's going to be over, the actions of the military.
Yes.
This is the 3-star general.
The 3-star general, right. That needed a waiver for the job because he couldn't do it. You know what I'm saying? What do you think? When you look at all that together, what does that look like? This dude is building a racist army to go against the citizens of the United States.
True.
That's what it's looking like. Why do all this? Like you said, a STEM program for kids just going in want to go to college. Like, hey, we want to recruit you for the military. No, we're not doing that anymore. Come on, man. Really? So it's, and to what Mike was saying, and I always thought this was kind of a solution, because whenever a police officer does something, the city pays for it. Oh, we killed your son. Sorry. Okay, we'll give you $20 million or $25 million, whatever it is, if you get that from the city. I've always believed that should come out of police unions.
Agreed.
So
totally agree.
Exactly.
Well, not the
so now
union.
you start,
Yes.
I think it should come from the
Yes.
police union.
Yes,
If you have a
I
problematic
totally
officer,
agree.
that union needs to pay for whatever
But unions
damages that
have a duty to defend, right? Like,
right.
they do have a duty to defend. Now, I guess if some conduct is so egregious,
Right.
then they should be able to not. But it's kind of, to me, I think it's kind of like
But
what he's doing with the FBI agents who investigated, right? Like, I have a duty to investigate, right? And so unions have a duty to defend. What I think we should have happen is personal liability.
Now, are you talking about that in regards to insurance?
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, we all have to carry
Insurance.
professional liability insurance, right? Like, if you're engaged in a profession or something like that, they have what is called professional liability insurance, right? And this is insurance that doesn't fall under the healthcare or Medicare, or, whatever. This is an insurance. Now, what happens is now you may part of your policy, like, doctors and stuff like that. If you mess up, of course, you're paying all of these high, that's why doctors are so expensive, because they got to pay for the insurance, right? But there should be like some liability insurance that police officers carry. And if you've done something and you become uninsurable, then you don't belong on the force. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like, and it's the best choice of worst choices. I don't think that we want government workers, right? You see what happens when we try to cut the quote unquote deep state, right? Now people can't access their Social Security. He just put the people in West Virginia back, the only group that studies black lung disease, the coal he wants to bring back.
Yeah.
Well, you need people to study black lung disease because that's one of the side effects of working in a coal mine, right?
Yeah.
You close down U.S. aid, right? You're looking to shut down Department of Education, right? So we want the best and brightest for those who are dedicated to the service of their fellow citizens. Those are government workers. We are in dedication to our fellow citizens. We agree to take less of a salary in order to, get certain benefits at the end, pension or whatever that things is, right? And now, they done found out, there is no deep state. These are ordinary people who go to their work job every day, determined to be the best of and do what they do. Look at how those people who got laid off from USAID reacted, right?
Yeah.
So I had a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is pertaining to how AI is encroaching on everything, right? So I was wondering how AI is encroaching on the legal system, because that seems to be, I know it's starting to write legislation and laws for different states, right? And I was thinking about this because I heard of a case where there were two people, right? One lady, she was black. She defrauded, I think it was a casino for $40,000 one time because she had a gambling habit, right? And there was another lady, over 20 years, she was white. Over 20 years, she stole $288,000, right? 140,000, 288,000. The black lady who stole the 40,000 got a less sentence than the white lady did, right?
You mean got a higher sentence? The black lady who stole less,
she got a higher sentence than the white lady, right? They had different judges, but the same prosecutor. So would that rectify anything?
Well, I believe personally that once they get into this AI, and they're gonna eventually do it. Okay, let's keep it real. All right, everybody wants to dip to AI for everything. All right, but once they do it, it's not gonna make anything better. Not at all. Because once they get to like predictive policing and really getting crazy with that facial recognition with it, which they already are in many ways.
Ask you that.
Yeah. Once they do that, it's gonna be nothing but a bigger weapon.
Because I can't remember the name of the company that was in charge of that a while ago. I did hear about some of the software issues they had with some of that facial recognition, and they admitted to it has issues with obviously picking up the characteristics of different people of color. Right. So I mean,
but I was wondering with the sentencing though.
I mean,
as far as like what?
So we already have like what you're talking about is like federal guidelines and mandatory minimums, right? Well, you see how well mandatory minimums worked out for crack and cocaine, right?
Yeah.
But that was with people though.
Yeah, but the idea was to take discretion away from the judges so that there's an even playing field, right? The problem is that cocaine is weighed in kilos and stuff like that, and so when they were trying to figure out the conversion, they were like, "Oh, this rock of cocaine equals a kilo," like because nobody, in America we don't know what a kilo looked like.
Right.
Is a brick, but is a kilo lighter than a pound? So you know what I'm saying? Never mind that the very thing that makes crack comes from cocaine. So how is it that the Wall Street boys are getting away with a kilo of cocaine on probation, but you get caught with rock and it's bagged up 3 times? Well, now they got you on distribution, right? Plus the possession. Remember when Bush went across the street and got the little baggie of crack from across the street, right? And I didn't know this, but yeah, when you wrap it up in separate little baggies, yeah, that each one of those is its own crime. Like, because that means you plan to distribute. You know, so the problem is that when you have these things, it allows for you say the judge has to follow it. You want your judges to have some discretion and say, this is why I'm deviating from the sentence. Like, you know, God forbid, you know, we'll just use you get picked up, you know, but let's say there was extenuating circumstances, you know, like you're a postal worker, you got laid off, you got a baby at home, you know, you're facing foreclosure, and, you know, people say there's always choices. Well, yeah, when you're in certain communities, there are choices, but my choices don't mirror the choices you have. As a judge, I should be able to look and say, okay, you got 5. Okay, that means, you know, you got 20 years. However, you know, here are certain things in mitigation, right? You've never been this before. You're over 50. This was, you know, a thing of desperation. You know, we as society failed you because, you know, you didn't get your unemployment check, you know, because, you know, someone took your social security number and now you out here trying to prove that it ain't you, right? Yeah. So we can look at the totality of the circumstances and deviate. But what was happening was the judges had no discretion. Like, nah, you 5, each one of those carries a 8 to 10 year sentence. You going federal, you're doing 80%. No ifs, ands, or but about it. Never mind that, you know, you take care of your mama and you're taking care of your baby and all of that stuff. You know, stuff that gets considered for the Wall Street boys, right. You know, but because of the weight that you were carrying, it gets promoted to federal, or better yet, some officer on a federal task force, state trooper on a task force, but he's a federal task force. Now you elevated to, because you had the bad luck to be pulled over by a state trooper on a federal task force.
But why are some of these things, just like you're talking about with that, some of these things need to be brought towards the Senate? Because aren't they the ones the Senate?
Senate?
Yeah.
You mean the one that the Republicans are in charge of?
Well, hey, I'm just saying.
You talking about the House? The one
they're the ones that speak of law and they're the ones that speak of law and order.
Feckless.
They're the ones that speak of law and order.
That's your SAT word for the day. Feckless.
But I'm saying they are the ones who speak of law and order.
You mean the same ones who about to vote to cut for Medicare and Medicaid?
Unfortunately, yeah. All right. Now you speak on this, you stand on what you speak on. All right. So why is not anybody putting that and that something like qualified immunity? Okay, because just from what you read about it, it needs to be revamped. It needs to be changed. You know what I'm saying? And I understand that it does need to be some protections for officers of the law.
I mean, no, it's not just it's government workers. It could be teachers. Overall, your postman.
I'm saying it,
you know,
right. So it should be some protections, but when they getting out of pocket, hey, they gotta, you gotta get them. All right. And so making it so hard to sue some of these people, all right, because usually that's the only way you can get at them. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I mean, something like this needs to be put out there and pushed up against the Senate to do something like that. Go ahead.
We did, dog. We remember I called it. What did I say when Biden got in? I said, here we go again. Mm-hmm. Now we saved democracy when we put Biden in, right? When I say we, I'm talking about black people on this one. All right. We black people came out. Remember, Biden was losing until South Carolina. Yeah. Right. And then my man from South Carolina said, oh, no, we got to vote. The powers of the be, because they were looking at AOC and Bernie, because Bernie Sanders was tearing it up, right? And then we get to South Carolina, and I'm voting for Bernie. Wait, what? What? Now we all got to vote for this dude? And don't get me wrong. He, by all measures, a successful president, right? But what was the 2 things that came in right at the beginning when I said, yo, give us something to come out for you, folks. All right. Because we just talked about this. Yeah. Right. We got the Asian crime hate bill. Yeah. Right. That's true. We got the put them back to work, whatever, the microchip bill and the bridge bill. And what were the 2 bills that he could not get past that Arizona and Joe Manchin?
Yeah.
Civil rights and police reform. Mind you, We coming off of Derek Chauvin saying I can't standing on somebody's neck, kneeing on somebody's neck.
Right.
He could not get those two, Cinema and Manchin,
Right.
to pass the civil rights. Now, in all their due wisdom and glory, in 2023, 2022, we got the anti-lynching bill. We got that one. You know, I mean, it's only 2022.
Isn't that the one Mitch McConnell said he thought was already done when he was asked a couple years ago?
Yeah,
I thought we did that already.
No. Now lynching is a federal crime. You know, so when you have the privilege of knowing that should your relatives come in and find you handcuffed behind your back, hanging from the sheets, that the feds will investigate because clearly you committed suicide with your hands behind your back. You know, so now that you get the privilege of having FBI investigate and determine whether or not it's a federal crime, you know, if they do, well, then you have to deal with, you know, qualified immunity. Has anyone ever else been hung with their hands behind their back?
So something tells me if it wasn't for Cinema and Manchin being there, it would have been two other spoilers on the Democratic Party that would have stepped up. Because they didn't want that to pass. And that's what I think.
Yeah.
I think somebody else would have stepped up eventually, and they would have found another reason not to pass it.
You
I
trying
can
to
believe
out
it.
my word feckless? No.
I can believe it. I can believe
Y'all are
it.
so cynical.
Hey, they just
I
wait.
can believe
I
it.
think they
I
just
can
wait,
believe
man.
it.
If you can't get a Manchin and a Cinema in there, two more people definitely gonna step up and take their
I'm like,
place.
you ain't got no blackmail photos, nothing. Like you ain't had nothing. Like nothing, dude. Like you're the president of the United States, and you're letting two people from your side. I can understand if it was the other side, but you literally controlled at the time the House and the Senate and the presidency, and you couldn't get the two things that people of color wanted. You know, it's you know, I mean, you know, the Civil Rights Act, and instead we get rollbacks of the Civil Rights Act, like. You know, the states that
I think they threw a couple studies in there too, right? Like, oh yeah, we're gonna study how we can give you guys reparations, but we ain't, you know, you ain't gonna get it.
Oh yeah, they did a lot of the studies.
No, they talked about the study. They didn't do the study. That was on Friday at 6:00. We didn't hear about it, but we wanted the civil rights, right? Because I forget the guy's name. John had just passed, right? Yes, you know who I'm talking about. I can't think of that. But the civil rights, and we said police reform, right? George Floyd, coming off the heels of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. John Lewis, right? John Lewis. Thank you. I knew it was John. Yeah. So get into some good trouble, but the time was right. Like yes, the arm of justice is long, but it curves towards justice. And so. Those were what we wanted. And then, we also had, the whole student loan forgiveness and all of those things, because that primarily affects African Americans. We got none of those, but we got the anti-Asian hate crime bill. Not to say, it's just here we are again. We saved democracy, and now here we are again. And you're witnessing the rollback of civil rights. Yep. I mean, my man is still in El Salvador.
Yep.
Still sitting in El Salvador.
Yeah.
This, I think, is fundamental. The things you learn about, a bill is a bill, just a bill. I know that don't come on, but you learn the powers of the branches. And although the Supreme Court, Andrew Jackson said they rule, but let me see them enforce it. It has been since time precedent that the executive gives way to the orders of the judicial, right? The executive
which
is
he
supposed
doesn't
to
do.
matter of fact,
he doesn't do.
He's had judges arrested.
Yes.
Right? He's defied the Supreme Court. He has put arguments forth that no competent attorney would. As a matter of fact, when he let go of the attorney who first argued Abreu's case, because he was like, Judge, I can't find any reason he shouldn't have been deported. You know, they fired him and his supervisor because they said he did not zealously represent the
right, and they got somebody else to represent it.
But the
And-
problem is, I still have a duty as an officer of the. I can't lie to the court.
No, I understand what you're saying, and you're right. That's how it's supposed to be. But this man is not doing that, and he's throwing anything out there in the sea what will stick. I mean, I don't know if
Right.
you all have heard,
Yeah.
but there's talk of trying to deport migrants to South Sudan.
Oh yeah.
So if he can't get that one, he's going to try to get this other person. Now, come on now.
I mean,
But like you said, those orders don't mean anything unless someone is there to enforce them, right? So yeah, he's been oh, you can't do that. Oh, you got to bring this guy back. Yeah, no, we're not going to do that. Oh, okay. And it's left there. So what do you do? Because now we're looking to the courts to act on our behalf. They aren't doing anything other than telling him, hey, you have to bring this guy back. You have to stop doing this. You can't do this. And he's just like, oh, no, we don't care.
Well, I mean,
We'll do whatever.
some of it would change if the Republican Party would grow a spine because they know this is wrong.
Yeah, but you know what? At
Back
the end of the day, if they can make
less.
money off of it
Yes.
and it policies that benefit them, that's all they care about, man. That's all they care about.
I mean,
You
then they
guys
just
saw
win the
nothing?
2 seats in Florida,
Yeah,
right?
Yep.
And like, well, it was a close race. Why was it close? Y'all,
yeah.
dude, he is cutting Medicare and Medicaid. Where else does Medicare and Medicaid rule but Florida?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
And if y'all are still willing to vote for that, you know, in these 2 districts, like, don't get me wrong. Yeah, you know, Trump won these 2 districts by 25 points or whatever, and this time they only won it by 10. The point is they won, right?
Yeah.
So how do I vote? How do you vote against someone who's set on their own demise?
Yeah.
You know, there's a famous line in Lord of the Rings, the second one, and the king, they're facing, you know, they're going to be overrun by the Urks and all of that stuff, right? And the king turns to, you know, the heroes in the movie and says, what do you do against such reckless hate? You know? And the man is like, we got to ride. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I have friends that are, you know, European and stuff. He's like, you know why y'all don't get nothing in America? Because y'all don't burn nothing. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
we talk, I've never thought something was as oxymoronic as peaceful protest. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to remember, Martin Luther King's protests weren't peaceful. He was peaceful. The agitators weren't. And those shocked the conscience of a nation to see hoses turned onto young teenagers,
Mhm.
to see Bull Connor let go of the dogs, right? What shocks our nation now? What will rise up
Yeah.
to the point where people take to the streets? Where is our call for the march on Washington?
Stock market.
You know,
It's the
hey,
stock
if
market.
tariffs didn't do it, you know, tariffs didn't do it at 125%, you know, I can't get my stuff from Temu and Shein,
No, you need to mess
But
with
you know
people's
what?
retirement. 'Cause
but we
I'll tell you,
have.
it didn't go down. It's up. It's up now. It's up now.
And you know what?
So-
The tariffs, that's just nothing but him playing games to line his own pocket. You know, you got to look at it.
I think if you
Vietnam.
if you take people's
Oh.
retirement money, that's what's gonna do it.
He's taking their Medicaid and their Medicare.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
taking food stamps.
Yeah.
He is cutting programs for veterans and for the poor.
So a lot of, I hate to say it, but a lot of those poor people that he's taking the money from, they don't vote. Middle class and upper class vote.
There is no middle class anymore. There's rich and working,
Well, you got, you got well,
or
I
rich
hate
and
to
about to
say
be
it,
broke.
Yeah.
But even the elections where I thought that maybe 70-80% of the people in the United States would come out, that voting, it was still around 50%, 50-60% at the most.
If you can,
People don't vote.
if you get rid of your veterans, you get rid of food stamps, you get rid of Medicare, you get rid of Medicaid, and if the people fall for the okie doke and believe that, hey, all of these tax savings are going to go to us, well, guess what? This is the same man who said Mexico was going to pay for the wall,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And people forget that. You know, he done went in We don't know what government systems Doge has access. We know that there's a whistleblower who done came forward and says, look, we show signs of people hacking and the signals coming from Russia, but we don't know what they do and what they have in access, right? You done took a luxury 747 plane that the other country, they were trying to get rid of it and gave it to you. And then you gave it to the Department of Defense, and the Department of Defense is going to give it to you afterwards. Dude, if there's anything as a bribe, I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
That's even bribery by Chicago standards. Do you know how low that standard is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's low.
Blago said, yo, I got this thing and it's golden. That man just mused about it. Mused about it. And he got 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
I think you can totally slash Medicaid and Medicare, and people still won't come out. You can slash food stamps. You can slash anything you want to slash, but I bet you won't get that voting percentage over 70%.
Well, we gonna
no matter
Nah,
what.
we gonna
No
find
matter
out.
what.
No, everybody don't
No
have
matter
retirement
what.
accounts. Like that
don't
is a
think we do it.
privilege that is a privilege, right? That is like to have a retirement account, to look at your 401k, which again, I think is one of the biggest hoax pulled on people. That we're gonna have this thing, these imaginary numbers tied to imaginary money, and depending on how much people buy or sell, that determines your imaginary worth, right? Right? There's nothing backing it, is nothing, right? Just and like I said,
You
all
speaking about cryptocurrency.
I'm talking about just the stock market.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I have more current faith in Bitcoin than I do, the stock market, because it's so subject to manipulation.
And that's scary, bro.
All of us here are in 401ks, right?
Yeah.
Everybody else, the rich, they have financial planners. So we go with what the group does, what's best for the group.
Yeah.
Planners do what's great for their individual, right?
True.
As opposed to having a defined retirement, right? Like in France, that man told them they had to work 720 more days.
See how well that went, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, we got to do this to save the Republic, long live France, right? And they're like, no. And he was like, no. And so he passed it.
Yeah.
The best picture I ever saw was that woman sitting at a restaurant eating a croissant while tires were burning in the back. The planes, the pilots are like, we ain't flying. Truck drivers are like, we ain't trucking. Bakers were like, we ain't making no croissants. Like the whole country shut down. But we lack that unity. And it comes back to what Johnson said. If I can convince the poorest white man that he is better than the richest black man, I can go into his pockets and take everything I want.
But and that's the thing, to what you're saying, Tim, is that you got to remember, man, like you had people that literally looked at the two candidates and said, okay, this one over here actually has a plan for, the country, right? Okay, like one thing we talked about before, the $25,000 housing credit. Okay, just that alone by itself, very, advantageous for first-time home buyers versus this guy over here that's like, oh, well, he has concepts of a plan. And you would literally go to people and ask them, hey, okay, we have Kamala and we have Trump. Who do you think would be better? Oh, well, Kamala, she's stupid. She's not as smart as Trump is.
The same guy who went bankrupt in Atlantic City 4 times.
You literally would tell people, oh, look at her record. Look at what, she's a lawyer. They aren't stupid. Right. You know what I mean? Versus this guy over here. Oh, yeah. It makes up. How many lies did he tell when he was in the last time? I don't know, 20,000, 25,000. So you literally had people look at both of them and say, oh, no, I'm going to choose the racist Nazi Trump. and what was your reason? Well, the price of eggs. So a lot of people hid their, ignorance and racism behind the price of groceries. Well, Trump is going to bring down the price of eggs. Did he do that? When he said he wasn't going to do it, did anyone say anything? No, we tend to forget. He said, oh, well, groceries, I can't do that much about that. It is what it is. It starts with groceries. It's not going to go down. I don't control that. Did everyone come out en masse and say, hey, man, what the hell? You say you're going to bring down the price of eggs? Nope. No. So now how you expect those people to actually have an independent thought and say, you know what? No, this guy is bad for the country. They don't care because the proximity to whiteness empowers them so much, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Your civil liberties, my civil liberties, they don't care. So what do you do when you have a group of people that are like that just don't care about anything other than the fact that I get to feel good because I'm white? You're in the poorest state in the union, you're living in a shack in Mississippi or Kentucky. Doesn't matter. And we talked about this before. I don't know what you do, because all those things he just listed was right in front of people's faces. We already knew what this guy, to his credit,
he did what he said.
He did what he said he was going to do. So the fact
he
that
was
now,
serious.
Now you have all these people now, they're all of a sudden supposedly have a revelation. I didn't know that was going to do anything. It wasn't going to affect me. Yeah. So when you thought it was going to affect people of color, you were fine with it. Now that it's hurting you, maybe for a short amount of time, you actually, maybe I need to take, I'm sorry I voted. It doesn't matter. All your sorries, everything you have to say about that, I don't care. You already voted for the guy because you thought you were going to get something out of it. If it, you thought it was going to add something to the power of your whiteness. That's the only reason you voted for him. That's the only reason. You said, screw everybody else. I need to feel the way I'm going to feel like the last time we voted for him. Because again, no policies, no nothing. You're going to compare that to someone that actually, even if you didn't like Kamala Harris, we're voting only on policies. Even if they're politicians, they say stuff all the time. They lie. Okay, fine, whatever. Even the promise, even if you didn't think she was going to do it, but the fact that it was laid out, we could take a sheet of paper right now and lay out the stuff that she wanted to do versus the one thing. Well, let's say two, because it was his main objective was to get rid of Mexicans, anyone that's people of color, and get rid of DEI.
Don't forget he was going to solve Ukraine on day one.
Right. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, where did all those protesters at? I haven't seen all those protesters. They were at every Kamala and Waltz, rally. At a Trump rally, no, never seen them.
Right.
And you can't forget
Putin is still bombing.
Yeah,
we'll just let
that. But he blamed them for that. Don't forget, he blamed Zelensky for that. He did not blame Putin. That was a couple months ago, right?
Yeah. I mean, have you heard the man talk when he even when he was talking about Memorial Day and said Happy Memorial Day? You're like, no, that don't go together. This is a sacred day where we give honor to those who have fallen. He spoke at a graduation and refused or did not shake the second lieutenant's hands, which is, the only time these commissioned officers get to meet the commander in chief, and he walked off. He is taking this plane from the bottom, but I don't want to just put it all on them either. What I want to do is say is there has been a cowardice too on the Democratic side too.
Yeah.
Our failure, like when they all joined, several, was it 11 or 12 of them joined in the censoring of the guy who spoke at the State of the Union.
Yeah.
Man.
I can't think of Al Green.
Al Green.
Yeah. And this man said he did nothing. I said he was even more respectful than MTG.
Yes, he was.
And we all know she's depriving a village of his idiot. So, so here's the thing, and we talked about this when this first happened. We cannot. I told you this is how we get out of it. One, our leader, whoever chooses to rise out of this, will not be morally perfect. All right, they cannot be. All right. We are in that kind of society now. Like I said, if Martin Luther King was around today, he could not be Martin Luther King because we would be talking all about his affairs and not his message. Right. So, what was my man's name? Married to Abedin, the guy who had the computer and stuff like him. We need people like him. We need the comedian, those kind of guys who are raw, appeal to the working collar kind of guys. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's going to be clean. The only person I can think of, maybe Malcolm X, but your leaders are going to be morally ambiguous. All right. They are going to have their faults. The problem is we put our leaders up on a pedestal only to knock them over and then find fault with them.
Yep.
Right. So we need that. You need two. It's not going to be a politician. no revolution in this country has ever been led by a politician. It's been led by, spiritual leaders, civil rights workers, women laying their bodies on the line, our children, not because the men don't want to, but because we know our lives are less valuable. I don't think even if we put black women, especially now, that it would matter, right? 3, we need somebody who is as brash but intelligent. I know we keep joking about it, but P. Diddy ran Bad Boy Records, right? He is no more morally ambiguous than Trump, right? And he gangster, right? And sometimes you gotta have wolves to defeat other wolves. And I just throw it out there, not to say, P. Diddy, although if P. Diddy ran,
Hey, you might want to clarify that.
No,
man.
if he ran, he can't be
Wanda
convicted.
looking over here like
He can't be convicted.
I don't trust anybody with that much baby oil. That's all I gotta say.
But
Too
No
much
doubt.
baby oil be in the White House.
No doubt.
I mean, you're gonna have slip and slide on the lawn, dog. Slip and slide on the lawn, White House. Man, can you imagine what that inauguration party gonna be like, though?
No.
Yeah,
You might not want that, bro.
yeah.
But,
We don't call it freak off. We're gonna call it the Freedom Office Party.
We just gonna let it be, bro. Let's let it be.
I'm
But-
just saying, dude. You. I've told you over and over again. You don't govern the mob. You rule the mob.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
And Game of Thrones, like what's her name? The Queen says, "Yo, you're trying to be morally and doing this. You got to be on the throne,
Right.
and then you set the rules.
Right.
You've seen what happens. This man has attacked the press. He's attacked our institutions, and and here's the thing: even if he's not successful, the attack is the damage. You have the full weight and power. If CBS can't stand up to the federal government and capitulate it, and then you have all of these law firms.
Right.
I'm glad some of these law firms fought, and said, but those law firms that did not fight, they're losing. Like, if you can't fight for yourself, and first of all, that didn't even make sense to me. He done laid off half the Department of Justice. So all those lawyers are gone. So you just on personal, go recruit them. Recruit them. And you got top-notch investigators. He got rid of half the FBI. I think they might be motivated to do some investigation.
Yeah, exactly. But we are up against the time. Real quick before we get out of here, I wanted to put to everybody right now, Robert F. Kennedy, he decided to tell a lot of the scientists and so forth with the Department of Health that you can no longer
COVID vaccines?
Well, no, not even that. You can no longer put some of your proofs and so forth in the journal of American Medical Association and a couple of the magazines like that. And the second thing I wanted to say, which y'all don't trust it, and I'm asking everybody not to trust it. Yeah, he just pardoned for Larry Hoover.
Who?
Trump.
He
He just did it
Federally, though.
Yeah,
Federally.
federally.
That don't mean nothing. Okay,
right, because, and that's what I was about
He
to
still
say.
got 200 years.
Yeah,
Still got
yeah,
200
okay.
years.
Okay.
But just because you get a little bit of something
You got a
and
whole
you're
lot
not
of
getting the
nothing.
whole thing, you still got a whole lot of nothing. Exactly.
But before you sign off, I know we're coming up against the hour and we're slightly over. We do have to take the moment because one of us has made it around the sun one more time. All right. And so, it's this auspicious occasion. I'm going to talk louder so he can hear because I know he can't hear as he's gotten older, with the hair in the ears. But,
I
you
don't
know,
what you're talking about.
I know because you forgot. So, look, this started off as one man's dream. I have been so lucky to be a participant and ride along for it. So I'm not only is the world blessed, but I feel blessed to have this brother in the world one more year. One more trip around the sun. One of my brothers from, you know, J.C. Penney days. You know, you've heard me tell the story of how this brother sold a size 6 boot to a woman who wore a size 8.5. So, you know, P. Diddy ain't got nothing with the baby oil on this brother. All right. So, you know,
That's what he used to put the boot on.
yeah,
Baby
yeah,
oil, it was-
dude, he went like, I'm gonna take it in the back and I'm gonna stretch it out. Ain't no stretching. Ain't no stretching. 6 to an 8.5. But I admired it because we made our most money on the boots, especially when they came out. Those boots were 135 and we made 20% commission. So yeah, this brother was not letting that woman go. He's like, hold on. It's just a little tight. Let me take it in the back and let me stretch it out. Huh? Like, so just to remind you, it's this brother's, it was his birthday last week. That's why we were not on. It was a celebration. We are so grateful to have you. And here's to, 51, 52, 53, 51, more. I'm glad you remember. She reminded you. I saw her flash the sign.
She did this.
Yeah. He was like 15. He was like 15. I was like, no, 51. So it is truly a momentous, auspicious occasion. And thank you for blessing us with your blessing, brother.
Well, I want to thank y'all. I mean, let's keep it real. Eric, I've known you since 05. Mike, what was it?
98.
98. And Tim, it was 89. And y'all roll with me, since that time. And I appreciate everything. I thank y'all. Hey, I thank this platform because, y'all allow us to keep going and rolling. Much love to y'all. And I thank the wife, even though she disappeared somewhere, but I thank her too. So appreciation, everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this is Elevated Vibes. We will catch y'all next week. Peace.
All right, peace.